What is going on, YouTube? It is the Dual Threat Podcast here, your daily news source for all things sports. My name is Drew, and this is my co-host.
My name is Jacob, everybody. How is it going? Drew looking spiffy for the squad, and I've got the dual threat merch on. Hey, we both showing out for the boys.
All right, an important episode today. We're not going to actually do a usual segment that we do, but we're going to talk about what I believe what the media is kind of just, they're kind of baiting people in with this, talking about Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M. So we need to take advantage of the baiting here. So we're going to talk about it as well, give our takes on it. So Jacob, why don't you go ahead and start us off? What do you think about the latest news, and do you think Jimbo Fisher was a mistake for Texas A&M? I want to hear your thoughts.
This is such a loaded question because do I think he was a mistake? No, I do not believe so, and I'll give you a couple reasons why. When you look at Texas A&M and what they've accomplished in the recent years, I mean, you could say lackluster, a little underwhelming. I like to point back to the years that Jimbo had Kellen Mond. Um, Started off 7-5, I believe, and then went 8-5, I think. And then the year after 9-1, you say COVID year. Everybody says COVID year, acts like that's a big deal. I'd argue it was harder for Jimbo because all SEC schedule is not easy for anybody. 10 SEC games. Name a time where somebody went 9-1 in SEC, and you're saying that's a good season. I mean, it happens with the elite teams. And so that's my first point. I think recent judgment, people are hammering Jimbo Fisher, rightfully so. I mean, the team has been horrible. But I think when you think just a couple of years ago with not a good quarterback in Kellen Mond, let's be honest. I mean, call it what it is. He was not good. And I mean, maybe that worked for Jimbo's offense because Jimbo doesn't like doing anything explosive, and maybe Kellen was really good over the middle and good at timing his routes and putting the ball in the money. Not good, not super talented, but knew when to do what Jimbo needed him to do. So maybe Kellen was the perfect for his system, and then he gets these new quarterbacks and can't do anything with them. That might be true. It's hard for me to believe that a man that won a national championship at Florida State, obviously a great recruiter. I mean, the media won't even tell you that. The media just says, "Oh, this is a mistake. Fire Jimbo. Whatever. Move on." And they don't even talk about how they just got the number one recruiting class. Yes, whatever. NIL. Say whatever you want. And maybe that is true, but you still got to get the recruits. USC has NIL money. Alabama has NIL money. Georgia has NIL money. And they didn't get the number one class last year. So there's still more to say about him as a recruiter than just A&M threw money at people. But I think something's got to change. Personally, I don't think he should be fired. Maybe that's a hot take. Maybe Paul Feinbaum will come at me and get mad at me for saying that, but I think he's a good great recruiter, and I think he's a good leader and a guy you want to be around. I mean, like we mentioned, you get these recruits because A, they're going to play, and B, they like the culture, because they can go get money anywhere. And so I think he brings a lot more to this team than people are giving him credit for. What I don't think he should be doing is calling plays on offense. I mean, the man, he is, for lack of a better word, a boomer on the play sheet. I mean, Lincoln Riley plays like, Lane Kiffin plays like he's playing Madden. Jimbo plays like he's playing the original Nintendo football. I mean, the man just does not have an offense, and that, rightfully so, he should be getting critiqued for that. But at the same time, I think Nick Saban did it. He hired an offensive coordinator. He's been churning them through because they all go to different teams for head coaching jobs. But Nick Saban has an offensive coordinator. I mean, I think the older guys need to start realizing that they're not the same. They're not keeping up with the times. They don't have the brain capacity that these young guys do. And he needs some help on the offensive side of the ball. Drew, I think I think that's it for me. I talked a lot, and I think you can provide your side of the story here as well.
So I think there's a couple of things when you're asking if Jimbo Fisher was a mistake. Um, a mistake as the play caller, yes, I do believe that is the case. As head coach, and with the contract that they gave him, I think there's only one thing they really made a mistake. I understand they had to do this to probably get him to that point, but the way that it's set up right now is Jimbo Fisher is in complete control of whatever he wants to do. And that is different from a lot of the universities out there. A lot of the boosters can control a lot of things because they could say, "Hey, you know what? You don't do this, we can fire you, we can cut you, we can do whatever we want with you." Arguably, you could probably say that A&M's boosters could probably get that $100 million to buy him out if they really wanted to. But the way it's set up right now, you know, I feel like as as much money as A&M has, there's no way they throw 100 million at Jimbo and then they throw another 100 million at another coach to try to get them there. I feel like that's just unrealistic. So the way that it's set up right now, Jimbo has complete control over his program. I think what Jimbo needs to do is put his ego aside and do exactly what Nick Saban and like all those other coaches you were talking about and get an offensive coordinator. You see him over there holding his 300 pairs of paper sheets, and you wonder why it takes him all 40 seconds to call a play. And there's so many delayed games. You saw in the last game there were two timeouts in a row right before halftime. It's just it's impossible to be the head coach and to be an offensive coordinator and to be the head of recruiting, all of that stuff. Jimbo needs to, you're paying someone $2 million a year. Daryl Dickey, I believe is his name. And all he does is tell you how far you are from first down when it's like third and short or fourth and short. It's ridiculous. I can do that job. Jimbo, you need to give up some of your play calling. Going back to Kellen Mond earlier, I believe you're correct. I mean, I think what we really saw from Kellen Mond was he was a game manager, and that's kind of what it looks like Jimbo really needs for his offense to be average. Obviously, he needs a Heisman level quarterback for his offense to really succeed, and that was back in like 2014 also. So it may not even succeed now, but I think what you used to see with Kellen Mond is he would call audibles, he would make plays, make changes depending on the defense that he saw. I haven't seen that since Kellen Mond with Texas A&M's quarterback, and that's really been an issue for them. Um, I think also, I think my major problem with Jimbo's play calling is from over the past few years, it looks like he doesn't call plays based on the personnel he has. He tries to shape the personnel that he has into his game. You look at he recruited Haynes King because he's fast on his feet, but he's not a quick thrower. His motion takes forever, and so you saw these plays against Alabama where he has Evan Stewart run a pylon comeback, and Haynes King can't make the read and throw it that quick enough. His throwing motion is just too slow. So that's his main problem. I think he needs to give it up. We're going more towards spread options. I saw spread offenses. I saw a stat the other day that said that A&M is, I believe it was A&M, Wisconsin, and one other team that's been like a really big disappointment. They're top three in most like traditional dropbacks as a quarterback, and then the top three teams for the lowest amount of dropback percentage on a play was Tennessee, Kansas. Teams that are really surprising people this year. And I think that kind of shows, offenses are evolving. And it looks like Jimbo Fisher, it doesn't want to. He's very stubborn. He has a very complex system that takes either a Heisman level quarterback or it takes 4 years for just a normal quarterback to be able to learn. And we saw that with Kellen Mond. So that's my biggest problem with him. I by no means think that A&M needs to fire Jimbo. I also think that they have the most talent, whether they bought them or not. I don't know. There's no proof of that. They have the most talent they've ever had on that campus at this current moment. I mean, there's even after these suspensions, and I'm going to hear a lot of people say that Jimbo lost the locker room, whatever. These are the same four guys that, at least if the reports I'm reading are correct, they're the same four guys that left the night before the Miami game to a party. They obviously have not been bought in up to this point, and so maybe this is just a hot take, but I feel like you're better as a team when you find those people that are not bought in, and you either tell them, look, y'all are suspended right now. You either get your act together and you buy into this team, or you can leave. And to me, that makes a team better. You also see the freshmen stepping up. They're the ones that actually talked with Jimbo Fisher, I believe, about suspending them indefinitely, making the decisions for them. They did the same with Miami as well. So you see leaders coming up in this position as well. And so I think yes, I mean it does look bad that people are smoking in the locker room. I heard it was weed. I've heard it's a vape. I don't know which one it was. Either way, it's stupid. So I think I don't think Jimbo's lost his locker room. I think there's a lack of leadership in the program right now, and that maybe because Anaya Smith is injured. I also think that I remember their safety last year was a huge leader for them. He left for the draft, and it feels like nobody really ever stepped up and took that place. I mean, you've got a brand new quarterback as well that has only played 2 career starts before the year, and so it feels like they're still trying to find their identity in Week 8, and I feel like that's the problem. And so going forward, they need a better offensive line. Their offensive line is garbage, and they're not going to get rid of Jimbo, in my opinion. I think he's there to stay until 2031 or whatever his contract is. I know I kind of went on a rant for there as well, but yeah, that's all I've got, Jacob. What you got? Anything else for us here?
I'm just curious, what do you think? Everybody's saying fire Jimbo, so say they do. Where do they pivot to? Because these boosters aren't going to want to have invested $100 million just for them to go back to being 6-6, and maybe they're six and
Right.
six this year, but like 80% of their starters are freshmen, and so I mean it's looking it can't be worse than this is what I'm saying. So you fire Jimbo, I mean you still have young talent, and you now have no coach. I mean, unless like you said you want to spend another 100 million and go get Matt Rule, but I don't know if he wants to go back to college, or you try to get I don't Lincoln Riley's brother. I think you mentioned to me one time, but he might be looking for more of an OC role. Like, I just don't really know where you go. I mean, I get the frustration. I get that the boosters right now are saying, "Listen, we didn't pay all this money to be 3-4 through 7 weeks. I mean, we didn't have pay all this money to have a team that's going to go toe to toe with Alabama, but then just kind of be behind the chains and lose the game to South Carolina, be losing the whole game." It's like I get the frustration, but like at the same time we got to be reasonable here. Like we can't just act like because they threw around $100 million to a proven national championship caliber coach that they're just going to get rid of him and move on. I mean, yeah, I just don't I get the sentiment. I just don't know where they would go from here.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there really is nowhere to go if you look at college coaches this year. I mean, this is the problem when A&M started these long contracts. Is every coach in America right now is locked into those long contracts that are good enough to get this kind of money. Um, you look at Brian Kelly getting $12 million a year, Lincoln Riley, Nick Saban, all of the great coaches that you would want to go out and get are already they're already locked in to a major contract. And so I think that's realistic to say that look, there's not another coach out there that you're going to get that is better than Jimbo, a better recruiter for sure. But the thing is if you're going to fire Jimbo, you're going to have to hire a coach that's unproven, but has shown, like spotlight potential, like Kansas's coach or Garrett Riley, like you were talking about. Like, look, they've looked really good this year. They've turned a program around, but when they have as much talent as A&M does, how are they able to use that? Because it's very similar with like Matt Rule in college and then went to the NFL. Obviously, the NFL is a lot harder, but you can see that it's a lot more difficult to deal um, with way more talent than because you're also playing against higher caliber teams with more talent, and that's kind of the problem with the SEC as well. And so that's the thing is you either have to stick with Jimbo, who's a proven head coach, who has won a national championship, who needs to adjust his offense. And I think it's nationally recognized now. And I believe Jimbo has even said that in his press conference. Or you go with an unproven coach for low money, or, I mean, or you maybe bump up your defensive coordinator, Durkin, I believe his name is. But I mean, here's also the thing, though, is bad seasons are going to happen. Yes, I mean this is year 5. He's being paid a lot of money, but you look at Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. He won 4 games a year before he went to the college football playoffs. sometimes it takes another year for people to develop, and especially when you get the number one recruiting class of all time and they're all freshmen. I mean, you're young, but I mean, that's not really an excuse in year five. I'm just saying that there's light at the end of the tunnel because you have a lot of talent on your roster. I think Connor Wigman looked great when he came in. I loved watching him in high school. I think he's going to be a real stud if he can get an offensive line in front of him. But you got to stick with your program. You got to stick with your head coach who brought in all this talent. You just got to change up the scheme a little bit, and I really think that's really all A&M needs to do right now. And that's all I got to say, Jacob. What do you think?
Yeah, I think pretty much nailed it out. Yeah, I don't think you can fire him. I mean, I'm not calling him Nick Saban. Nobody is, but I mean, if he's gonna start and like get going from here. I mean, listen, he didn't have great. I mean, he had solid recruiting classes, but nothing like he had this year. And so if he just keeps building on this, and I mean, Nick Saban, his juniors, seniors leave, and he has more juniors and seniors that have just been waiting in the woodworks. I mean, A&M is nowhere near that deep, and so I think. I mean, I think it's hard to hold him to a level of scrutiny when all of his people are freshmen. I mean, I think, but I think this can be a good building place. I do think they need to get an offensive coordinator, but I mean, yeah, if he's gonna build something, I mean, in year five, you would have liked for it to have already been built, but I don't think it's too late, especially with this contract he has. So yeah, hire an OC, put your ego aside. I mean, all the greats do it. Maybe I don't know, maybe they fire him and hire Urban Meyer, but
Yeah, that's doubtful. All right. Anyways, thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe, like the video, comment down below, but let's keep it PG rated down here. All right. If you disagree with us, that's fine. Just tell us your opinions. No need to call anybody names or anything like that. Jacob, you got anything else for us here?
I think that's it. Everybody, thanks for watching. Peace.
Peace out.